From an early age, we are shaped to seek the approval of others. The smiles and expressions of our parents teach us to depend on external action, a practice we follow throughout life, this constant need to please everyone. Even strangers imprisons us in the modern world. There is a great emphasis on the search for social validation and on appearing well in the eyes of others. This has created a population of men and women whose development is stagnant. Many times we put our own dreams aside out of fear of judgment from others. And although it is natural to care about others' opinions to a certain extent, after all, it facilitates social interactions, the obsession with pleasing can be harmful and unnecessary. Spending hours imagining what others think about us not only consumes our mental energy, but also prevents us from living fully. As Richard Taylor stated in Restoring Pride, most of us care too much about others' opinions. We overvalue social approval and have an irrational fear of disapproval, criticism, and rejection instead of following a path that aligns with our talents, strengths, and desires. We end up conforming to what others expect from us. Social validation actually comes mainly from one thing: success in the external world, or at least the appearance of it. The position we hold, the material goods we own, the size of our bank account, our physical appearance, our fashion choices, and the status of the people we associate with. These are the things that bring the validation that many so desire. The moment we let our happiness depend on the validation of others, we hand over control of our emotional state. With this mindset, we feel euphoric when others like us, but when they don't, we feel sad and irritated. And especially today in the age of social media, many have made others' approval the central point of their lives. Positive attention then becomes a necessity for happiness, something that depends completely on the will of those we try to impress. Many of the people we try to impress, we don't even know. Furthermore, many have fickle opinions that often lack foundation or are completely ignorant. A survey of 2,000 British adults called the National Worry Audit revealed that on average, people in Great Britain spend about 6.5 years of their lives worrying. Many of these worries relate directly or indirectly to others' opinions. For example, in day-to-day life, 28% of Britons worry about their appearance, 21% about what to wear, and 17% about body odor. The average life expectancy of Britons is currently 81 years, which means they spend 8% of their lives worrying. If they stopped worrying about what others think, they would have about 10 more years to enjoy life or do something useful. What a waste of energy to spend this short and vulnerable existence wondering what others think. Kashim and Koga, authors of the book The Courage to be Disliked, state that the only thing you need to find happiness is the courage to be disliked. They explain that we should not fear being disliked. Freedom lies precisely in not depending on the approval of others. Kashim and Koga explain that there are two main goals when interacting with others: to seek approval or to try to make a positive impact in their lives. The authors state that unhappy people often make seeking others' approval their goal. These people believe that true happiness comes from being seen as good by others, whether a teacher, a parent, or society. However, this pursuit always leads to the same result: unhappiness. Essentially, unhappy people believe that being liked by others makes them good. Many might argue that the desire for approval and validation is a natural part of the human experience. However, Shimi and Koga explain that this is a mistaken view. They state that human beings do not seek approval to find happiness, but rather we seek happiness in approval because it satisfies a deeper need within us. But why do people seek recognition from others? For Kashim and Koga, in many cases, this occurs due to the influence of an education based on rewards and punishments. They point out that even when unhappy people manage to gain others' approval, it comes at a high price in the pursuit of validation. They end up living according to others' expectations, sacrificing their freedom and, in the end, their happiness. They explain that living life trying to assess others' feelings and worrying about what they think of you is living to meet the desires of others. There may even be signs that guide you on this path, but it is a very unfree way of living. They also explain that the courage to be happy includes the courage to be disliked. When you gain this courage, your interpersonal relationships change completely, becoming lighter and more natural. Conditioning ourselves to be indifferent to the approval of a single person is already a great challenge. However, when we are in the presence of a group or a crowd, the need for approval can become even stronger. Sometimes this need manifests itself as social anxiety, which hinders our ability to thrive when we are giving a speech or making a presentation. For example, we may become tense and nervous, unable to perform at our best in social gatherings. We feel uncomfortable and cannot act with spontaneity. And the worst part is that the social anxiety arising from this excessive need for approval prevents us from following our conscience to be one of the few who stop living in reference to others. It is necessary to diminish the fear of ridicule, rejection, and disapproval. Those who fear these things will remain conformists, recognizing that fear is best faced by exposing oneself to what we fear. We can turn to the ancient philosophical practice of acting intentionally to provoke social disapproval. The Roman senator Marcus Porcius Cato, follower of Stoic philosophy, who lived in the 1st century before Christ, was a proponent of this practice. As William Irvine writes in his book, A Guide to the Good Life, The Ancient Art of Joy. A way to overcome our obsession with gaining others' admiration is to make a conscious effort to do things that will likely generate their disdain. Cato made a point of ignoring fashion. Dictates, according to Plutarch, Cato did not do this because he sought glory. On the contrary, he dressed differently to get used to feeling ashamed, only of what was truly shameful, ignoring others' low opinions about everything else. In other words, Cato consciously performed actions that provoked people's disdain, just so he could practice the act of ignoring that disdain. Another great example of someone who adopted this practice was Diogenes the Cynic, who lived in the 4th century before Christ. Almost daily, Diogenes took actions that provoked ridicule, rejection, and scorn. One example of this was when he walked backward in theaters going against the crowd that was leaving, with the goal of becoming accustomed to acts of nonconformity. When he did this, people mocked him and questioned his intent to, which he replied, "Aren't you ashamed that while walking in the wrong direction in life, you mock me for walking backward?" Diogenes was so successful in detaching from any concern about what others thought of him that he achieved a level of freedom that many can only dream of. The chains of others' opinions no longer constrained him, the weight of social validation no longer bothered him, and instead of shaping his life to appear well in the eyes of others, his only purpose was to cultivate greatness in himself through mastery of body and mind. When someone said to Diogenes, "Most people laugh at you," he replied, "And certainly donkeys laugh at them. But just as I don't care about donkeys, I don't care about them." Diogenes' way of living did not make him scorned by all his contemporaries. On the contrary, he was admired by notable figures. Alexander the Great was so impressed with his character that on one occasion he said, "If I were not Alexander, I would like to be Diogenes to approach Diogenes' ideal." It is useful to adopt the following mindset. We are not practicing acts of nonconformity just to look foolish or to attract attention. Our goal is to learn more about human nature and about our own potential. We are in fact practicing what Nietzsche called psychological observation, so when our actions provoke laughter or disapproval, we can follow the advice of philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, who suggested if you come across some special trait of malice or stupidity, you should be careful not to be disturbed or upset by it, but see it only as an addition to your knowledge, a new fact to be considered, studying the character of humanity. Your attitude towards it will be that of a mineralogist who finds a very characteristic specimen of a mineral. It is not in our hands to change people's opinions, and that is not something we can do to make them like us. However, there are some steps we can take to improve our way of dealing with these feelings. A first step to cultivating a healthier attitude towards others' opinions is to reflect on the character of the people whose approval we seek. Do these people deserve our respect and admiration? Are they in a process of growth or stagnant? Do they have courageous, independent, and curious minds capable of seeking the truth and forming their own opinions? Or are they conformists who accept everything without question and repeat what they hear from celebrities, influencers, and politicians? If a person does not impress us, why should we care about impressing them with our lifestyle? The Stoic philosopher Seneca said, "How foolish is the one who leaves the classroom with a joyful heart simply for the applause of the ignorant. Why do you take pleasure in being praised by people you yourself cannot praise?" And Arthur Schopenhauer reinforced what happens in the minds of others is a matter of indifference to us. Over time, we become indifferent to this when we realize how superficial and futile most people's thoughts are. how limited their concepts, how petty their feelings, how distorted their opinions, and how much falsehood there is in most of them. Another way to ease the pain of ridicule is to remember that often the people who are quickest to judge and most aggressive in their criticism are precisely those whose opinions matter the least. They are not people of sound mind, but individuals consumed by the disease of the West who use criticism as a means of projecting their misery and self-hatred onto others. The way people react to us often reflects more about themselves than about us. When we face hostility, indifference, or even sadness in response to our actions or even our mere presence. This is not always something personal. Many times these reactions may be expressing aspects of people's unconscious without them realizing it. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, called this phenomenon projection. He believed that people tend to repress undesirable aspects of themselves into the unconscious, creating what he called the shadow. A consequence of this is that we recognize in others what we recognize in ourselves. And thus, when we dislike something in others, it is often because we dislike that trait in ourselves. An adverse emotional reaction then arises. Psychology Today magazine describes projection in the following way. Unconscious discomfort can lead people to attribute unacceptable feelings or impulses to another person to avoid facing them. Projection allows the difficult characteristic to be addressed without the individual fully recognizing it in themselves. Jung stated that projections turn the world into a replica of our own unknown face. We all see the world through a unique lens, and the unconscious plays a crucial role in how we relate to the environment around us. Knowing this, we can put others' opinions into perspective. The ancient philosophical practice of voluntarily exposing ourselves to ridicule and rejection teaches us an important lesson. The world does not end when someone shames us, and no harm befalls us when people disapprove of our actions, as long as we are comfortable with the actions we took. Over time, insults and judgments from others become empty words that may pass through our ears, but do not disturb our minds. We will no longer feel compelled to live for others, and if we are willing to listen to the call of our essence, a greater life will open before us. The greatest antidote to not caring what others think of us is to cultivate confidence in ourselves. If we are insecure and haunted by feelings of inferiority, we will remain dependent on others' approval and always fearful of their disapproval. On the other hand, if we focus our time and energy on strengthening our mind and body, on improving our character, on achieving our goals, and on building a life we are proud of, what others think of us, whether good or bad, will lose importance until it becomes insignificant in conclusion. Regardless of what you do, it is inevitable that some people will not like you. Therefore, the only way to find lasting happiness is to accept this reality and have the courage to live a life you believe is good, regardless of others' opinions. That is why it is essential to abandon the need for approval and develop the courage to be disapproved. Of a philosopher from antiquity named Epictetus said there is only one way to happiness. Stop worrying about things that are beyond your control. He believed that we should not tie our emotions to events in situations we cannot control. And others' opinions are precisely one of those things. Epictetus stated, "If you want to improve, be content to be seen as ignorant or stupid. In some things, the important thing is that you are doing something true and good regardless of others' opinions. To be able to live without caring about the disapproval of others is to achieve a great level of freedom, instead of being manipulated by opinions, expectations, and judgments. You will be guided by your values, principles, and inner goals. With that, you will live with more courage and confidence, with more lightness and authenticity, with more love and self-respect. And from there, you will be able to offer your best to the world. Instead of living for others, live for yourself and for something greater, because that is the only way to live fully." The great Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." If you can absorb this idea not just intellectually, but truly internalize it and live by it, your life will change radically when you realize that most of the people you're trying to impress are just as lost and confused as you, that their opinions are often superficial and meaningless, and that their approval does not add true value to your life. You will be free to express your essence, to live aligned with your convictions, and to cultivate your own greatness in a world obsessed with appearance. Dare to live with substance. You don't need to be admired by everyone. You just need to admire yourself when you look in the mirror, to respect the person you are becoming, and to move forward without fear in the direction of a life that makes sense to you. This is the true meaning of living for yourself and not for others.
Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, leave a like and a subscription. If you could keep listening to the video until now, congratulations. You are a warrior who have the capacity of bringing attention for a long time. Leave a comment saying this: I'm brave. Then you will let people know that you have the brave to improve your life quality, and you'll try to be better each day. Now bye until the next video. A big hug from the Being of Knowledge.